We're live across the internet. Hello, I'm Austin Ward. This is Lettermen Live. We're back again in the Lettermen Row studios in downtown Columbus today. Joined on my far left by George Kaufman. Byers Auto sponsors the show. The good folks down there. Probably some really great sales going on right now, George, right?
Always.
Okay.
Always, every day.
15 brands. What's the story there?
15
How much
brands.
can I find whatever I want at Byers Auto?
If I don't currently have it, you tell me what you want, I'll find it.
Perfect. In the middle, there's Beanie Wells, former Ohio State and NFL running back. We'll have some interesting questions for him today about the running game. It didn't look all that impressive necessarily against Tulane. Get his thoughts on that. Might have been on purpose. And then Berm from Lettermen Row, our senior recruiting expert.
Doing the Lee Corso wave.
I think he doesn't even do it that.
Oh, it's not that
aggressively
pronounced.
anymore.
My apologies.
He will be there, of course, on Saturday. Ohio State is going to be on the site of College Game Day for the second time already in September. It went pretty well the first time down in TCU, but we're not talking about that game anymore. We won't probably talk about Tulane all that much unless you guys ask some questions about it, because Saturday's the big one. These are the games that you go to Ohio State to play, that you go to Penn State to play. Beanie, you're the only one of the four of us that has played in a setting like this. What is the week of preparation like? You know the Big Ten is potentially on the line on Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge game. Obviously, you know the implications. Penn State's one of those teams that have looked very sneaky this year. I think they've been a little bit deceiving in terms of, they look a little bit sketchy going into the game versus Appalachian State. They're able to pull it out, and they're able to go on the next couple of weeks and kind of score up a whole lot of points. And, every time you play Penn State, especially if it's going to be in Happy Valley, it's going to be a hard environment to play in. That fan base is electric.
What makes it so hard? I mean, they're loud. We know that they're going to wear the same color. What's the challenge for a player that's walking out there, onto that field?
It's loud, and there's just a bunch of young, crazy people. And obviously, to get into the stadium, if you guys have been there, once you get off the buses as a player, you have to walk essentially through all the ruckus and the chaos to be able to get into the stadium. So you're right there. They're right on top of you. Probably one of the louder, tougher environments that I've been in front of, especially in a night game.
And George, when you look at these games like this, and now that you're an experienced cheerleader, well, first of all, tell us how this happened. For everybody who missed it, this guy was on the field leading out the Buckeyes and, doing all the things a male cheerleader does. What's that experience like for you?
It was pretty special. It was a auction item on the Buckeye Cruise for Cancer, and a gentleman by the name of Mitch Price. I want to give a shout out to him. Phenomenal guy. Really gave us a true game day experience of what it's like to be a cheerleader. And, got to lead the team out on the field. And pretty special day. It was really a lot of fun.
Had you been in training for this?
No. I don't know how you train for that, and I wasn't sure what I was getting into. But, I learned how to do the basket, and another thing that I don't know if I can say on here. But it was everyone was great. Really a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Have you been over to State College as a fan before?
I have not. It's one place that I have not been in the Big Ten that is absolutely on the bucket list.
They're not exactly the most welcoming bunch if you're not wearing the white out colors. Going to Beanie's point, being there on the sideline, I've been there now twice on the sideline, and they're just right on top of you. It's a totally different experience than anywhere else in the Big Ten as far as I can recall. I mean, Iowa's sort of similar. But those fans are right there, and they are loud, and they're not nice.
No.
They're not nice. They're not like welcoming you. It's not like, oh, we're really glad to see you. There's a lot of profanity. There's a lot of things being thrown at people. It's not an enjoyable experience. And I was actually speaking to an Ohio State staff member on Monday night, and we were talking about how for the entire week, there's nowhere else in the country. You'd rather be anywhere else in the country than at Penn State. But for those 3.5 hours on Saturday night, it's a pretty great spot to watch a football game, unless you're in the press box because it's not comfortable. But
yeah, Beanie, you're talking about an uncomfortable experience. Penn State has the worst press box in the entire Big Ten, maybe in the country.
But on the field, in the stadium, it is electric. It's a different atmosphere. And I mean, I've been there twice. For 2014, when the Buckeyes won on the walk-off sack in double overtime. 2016 with the loss after the blocked field goal. So both games have been crazy. It's different. I mean, that's all you can really say.
This whole series has been pretty crazy recently. Even last year in the Horseshoe, obviously, the wild comeback with J.T. Barrett, the thrilling finish there. The stakes in this game, this series, Ohio State and Penn State seem to now be higher than even the game at the end of the year. Obviously, we know what the rivalry means and how important that is on its own, but I think that there's a pretty strong case now to be made that this is the one that truly matters if in the Big Ten if you're going to win the East and you're going to go to the college football playoff.
I think it's a playoff play-in, essentially, this weekend in Happy Valley. I mean, I know that there's obviously ways you can get into the game, into the playoff if you lose this week, but to me, this is a play-in game for the Big Ten.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is one of those games, you win this one, you control your own destiny. You know, you only have a certain amount of those games on your schedule every year. This is certainly one of them. And then, obviously, you know, you look at, how JT, oh my, Dwayne Haskins has been.
He was there for 4 years.
Right.
It's easy to get
5.
You look at how Dwayne Haskins has been and how well he's played. And you've been waiting to see, is one of these teams finally going to test him?
Yeah.
This could potentially be that game.
George, what do you think? You backing Dwayne for Heisman after 4 games?
Oh, 100%. I mean, his first half stats should put him on pace for Heisman alone.
Yeah.
And once we start getting in the thick of the schedule, in the meat of the schedule, and he's playing 3 quarters, 4 quarters, the stats are just going to get better. I mean, he's looked like he's been a 4-year starter. He's been phenomenal.
But is he even going to play 3 quarters, 4 quarters?
Well,
like this weekend, this weekend you expect him to, but all of October is sort of an opportunity for more half games, and then in November you basically have what should be a cakewalk against Nebraska, which should be a cakewalk against Maryland, and then you have Michigan State and Michigan. So is he only going to play 3 more full games until you get to the Big Ten championship game?
I think there's something to be said here. And, as you get into October and November, that people will start looking at the playoff race and picking apart team schedules. I mean, to me, it's a tribute to Ohio State and what Urban Meyer has built that they have such a wide gulf against the rest of the Big Ten, which has been elevated significantly over the last 5 or 6 years. They are so much more talented than everybody but 2 or 3 or 4 teams in the country, and only 1 or 2 in the Big Ten. That's just the way it's going to be. It's going to be a 3 or 4 game season, and maybe that's not the most enjoyable thing in the world, but that's yeah. I was going to say the fans probably like it, but that means that you have to put so much more into those few games. It's just an interesting dynamic to me, Beanie.
So I tweeted something, and I'm sure you guys saw what I tweeted on Saturday during the game. And tell me if I'm far off. I tweeted that Dwayne Haskins may, and I can't even believe I'm even saying this right now.
Do it again. Bring it back.
He may very well be better than the best quarterback to ever come through Ohio State, Troy Smith. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I got a lot of flack for it, and I got a lot of people that was agreeing with me. But when you watch him play, I mean, I don't know that we've seen as natural of a thrower of the football than Dwayne Haskins.
I wrote after the game, I was on that, sort of crazy train with you. I said, with Dwayne Haskins, the way he's playing through these 4 games, and I don't care the degree of competition. TCU was obviously a significant one, but the way he's throwing the football, you can't rule out a Heisman. You can't rule out the national championship. You can't rule out that he could be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. You can't rule out that he's going to have the most productive season as a quarterback in Ohio State history. So why would you be able to rule him out as the best they ever had? I think all of that was within reach for him. I'm not saying that he is at that point right now, but what you're saying, by the end of the year, that might be a legitimate conversation. All those things could happen. The way he throws the football it's not just about the arm strength that we expected. Mm-hmm. It's the accuracy. It's the confidence. The willingness to hit those intermediate routes. I think that, for all the good things that JT did, throwing guys open over the middle of the field into some tight windows were not really risks that he wanted to take. And that's fine. They still scored a lot of points, but Dwayne Haskins does things at a very different level, and it is reminiscent of Troy.
Decision making. Yeah. His decision making's been awesome.
To me, it's not even always about throwing a guy open. It's about being unafraid to throw to a guy that's covered. Mm-hmm. To me, it's about just the arm strength, the delivery, the release. I told people who would listen a year ago, whenever this happens for Dwayne, he's a potential first-round pick. I was telling this to people a year ago, 2 years ago, and nobody wanted to listen. Of course, because we have a bunch of people out there who just don't want to listen to me. But the reality is...
Well, you're also telling them about Tate, so they've got...
Tate Martell can lead this Ohio State football team. That's all I'm saying. We have never seen a quarterback in recent history at Ohio State like Dwayne Haskins, and that includes Troy Smith. I mean, Troy was obviously a tremendous passer of the ball, incredibly natural, great release. I mean, we're talking historic release with the football. But what Dwayne has in the full package, the full NFL package, is different than we've ever seen. I mean, that's not an unfair thing to say. I mean, it just hasn't happened at Ohio State. To me, the last real NFL type quarterback was Bobby Hoying, and he didn't really pan out either. So I don't know how much better he can get.
I think he's certainly, changed things for Ohio State offensively. You get that big test on Saturday against Penn State that we're previewing here at Lettermen Live, brought to you by Byers Auto.
You're too young to know about Bobby Hoying.
So
I know a little bit.
That's so weird. Like, how are you too young to know about Bobby Hoying? He was in Wyoming. He has no idea.
I wasn't really worried about Bobby Hoying, but the way he's changed the offense, Beanie, in some respects, you think, well, it naturally helps the rushing attack, but there are also times where they're not featuring it nearly as much. If you can throw for 350 yards a game, you're probably not going to worry about 30 or 40 carries. And so in that, I've got this question a lot. I don't even need to go check out the Twitter mentions or anything for this question right now. There are people that are concerned about the success of the ground game. J.K. Dobbins, 4 or 5 yards a carry the last couple weeks, that's fine, but it's not what he's used to in the past. Mike Weber sitting out the entire second half with that foot strain. He's supposed to play this week. But there just have been times where it seems like they're not as explosive as just in the last 2 weeks.
Right.
And last week they didn't have to do anything against Tulane. But the question has been asked a lot. Is there reason for concern with the rushing attack?
I don't think there's reason for concern. And obviously, we run the football. I think you see the production there.
Yeah.
You see those guys, hit the home runs. You see those guys churn out big yardage. I just think that, as we just mentioned, things have changed at Ohio State. We got a quarterback that we can rely on, that we can say, you know what, pass the football and get us out of a situation. We hadn't had that in a long time since Troy Smith. And back then, we were a more balanced football team. And for so long, Ohio State has been run first because they haven't had that guy that can go out and lead them to the promised land with their arm. And now that we have that, you kind of want to go out and utilize it.
It's funny to me that during the TCU game specifically, there were a bunch of questions of, does Dwayne have to keep it now to keep defenses honest on that zone read? It's like, didn't we just spend the last 3 years with people complaining that the quarterback was running it too much? Is there a balance there? I mean, does Dwayne need to keep it once or twice, or how does that, fit your eye?
I mean, I don't think we need to do that, first and foremost. I mean, like you said, we've done it for the past 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Now that you have somebody that can drop back and pass the football, and then you got supreme runners that we have, utilize those guys. It's okay to evolve. It's okay to get out of what you were used to for so long. And now we have somebody that can do something different and be productive while
It's
doing
been 10 years of that offense. It's been since Terrell Pryor was there. And
Right, you're right.
And then to Braxton Miller, and then to JT. And the reality is, I have questions about the running game. I have concerns, and I wonder, is this offensive line too big to be good run blockers?
I don't think so.
At 6'7", 310 pounds across the line? I mean, this is a pass-blocking offensive line. They are built to pass pro, right? Everybody in that line essentially is 6'7", 310 pounds. Are they not winning at the point of attack in the running game because they're not low enough? I mean, I'm trying to look at it from a football leverage standpoint. Are they not getting there fast enough?
So when you go back and you really dissect the film and you look at the schemes in which they're blocking in, when Zeke ran for 1,800 yards in back-to-back years, it was more of obviously a spread offense, but it was more of a zone-type running system. Now we're asking guys to do a little bit different man-blocking schemes, get a hat on a hat. And I think maybe that's a little bit of an adjustment for those guys opposed to blocking to a spot rather than blocking to a person.
George, it's always been said you got to win in the Big Ten with that running game. What do you think Saturday night here?
Well, first of all, and Beanie can speak to this a lot better than I can, but I think part of the problem is when you've got two really good running backs, and I feel like we've gone to one or the other for most of the carries in each game, and so I wonder if there's some consistency issues because they're not being allowed to get in a full rhythm because they're not getting full carries.
You're putting this on a tee for Beanie. He wants 30 carries.
So, well, and that's true. I mean, if you look at what first or second game, I think Mike Weber had most of the carries and had a great game. J.K. Dobbins had a great game against TCU. But when they're getting the bulk of the carries, that one particular running back I think is doing well. I'd love to have the two-headed monster. I think this weekend will be pretty interesting to see how they handle it. I think I read this morning that Penn State's rush defense is like 86 or 87th in the country.
They've had some problems. Yeah.
And if you can get both those guys firing, and Dwayne's getting the ball, he's either getting rid of it really quick on a great decision, or he's had time to let some routes open up, and if they can get those things going, they're going to be phenomenal.
All right, defensively, we can switch gears a little bit. We know for sure now that Nick Bosa is going to be out again on Saturday night against Penn State, and most likely until November, based on what his parents have said in multiple interviews with different outlets. Urban Meyer said yesterday that he does expect Nick Bosa back at some point this season, but we also don't know, Berm, if that's an absolute certainty. Looking at this either way you want, Saturday night, big picture, what does Nick Bosa's injury mean now that we know how long it's going to take and the fact that this is another one of those few big ones that's on the schedule?
To me, it means Chase Young has to step up and apply pressure on the quarterback without the help of Nick Bosa. To me, it means Jonathan Cooper needs to continue to play well. To me, it means the linebackers need to make tackles. And when you're especially against Penn State and the way that they run the read option, the offense that Ohio State has run for the last 10 years, now you see this is Trace McSorley's offense. He's going to make or break this game on Saturday. Yeah. And how the Buckeyes contain him. And so much of that is just getting him to the ground when you hit him. And we watched against Tulane, and we watched against TCU, we watched against Oregon, Rutgers. Buckeyes front seven not bringing a guy down when they've had a shot, and that's to the defensive tackles, that's to the linebackers, and I think really that's the important thing. And when you lose Nick, the thing that he did really well and never got the credit for is because he's such an exciting pass rusher. He's an incredible run defender as well, and I think that there's a serious lack of playmaker at the defensive end position right now, and that's where he's lost. Now, Jonathan Cooper and Chase Young are former five-star kids. They've got a lot of potential, but they haven't been able to do it yet without him. And Coop's played probably his two best games of his career in the last 2 weeks as he's played more. But you can't replace Nick Bosa. He's the best player in college football.
Yeah, I think that was going to be pretty clear. Even if you have five-star guys coming in, we're talking about a potential number 1 overall pick. Someone I mentioned repeatedly as a dark horse Heisman candidate with the production he was providing. So, I don't know, Beanie, I just put it simply to you. I mean, do you have concern about slowing down Trace McSorley without that edge rushing star?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you see what Trace McSorley possesses. I mean, he can extend and play, get outside the pocket, and obviously he's going to run that option. So it's going to be tough. You're going to have guys keying in on him, maybe running a quarterback spy. I mean, the big question I have, will we see Nick Bosa in an Ohio State uniform again? I mean, the fact that this guy is potentially a number 1 overall pick, we saw his brother go through and play the entire season healthy. Didn't have any issues this year. He was going to come out. But we saw Nick Bosa come into college with the knee issue. Obviously, this is something that's going to kind of hinder him a little bit, and he's going to have surgery and get over that. Do you risk that? Have we seen the last of Nick Bosa in an Ohio State uniform? I really wonder that.
There are millions on the line, so there's no way to really know for sure. But the guy who has come back talking about being a captain and a leader and how badly he wanted to win a national championship to go along with the one that Joey won in 2014, I believe that he would want to put that on the line. Now, he may have his family and his brother and others telling him,
it's not worth
be careful here. This is a lifetime's worth of money. But I don't know. Maybe it's possible that the health insurance risk policy that he's got could be enough to get him back on the field, and he's going to want so badly to win a championship that'll weigh out in the end. I don't know. You're the only one of us that has faced that sort of decision before and had those millions on the line. So it's impossible for me to sit here and predict what he's going to do. But
I just don't see it. I don't see any chance that Nick Bosa, if he can play, and if Ohio State has a chance to still win a national championship, that he's going to sit out. And I know that it's some of it's cliche and some of it's just propaganda, but the brotherhood that they talk about, especially in Larry Johnson's unit, is totally different than in a lot of places around the country. Right. And Nick, if he can go and he can help them beat Michigan and win a national championship, he's going to play. I
would love it.
if he can.
It's a completely fair question.
If he can, I just don't see any way he doesn't.
It would be a shame, George, to not see a guy playing at this level back out there again. It was just a glimpse of somebody who was playing at a rare level for a defensive player in college football. What he was doing, you mentioned Dwayne's half stats. Nick Bosa, what he was doing with even fewer snaps was insane. I've never seen somebody take over games like he was.
I truly think if he is healthy, he comes back. He's kind of a quiet guy a little bit, but then when you get him on the field, he's an animal. And I think that competitive blood in him. And I agree with you. If it comes on and he's healthy to help them beat Michigan, and there's a chance to go to the playoff, chance for the national title, I mean, I think he's playing.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, that's it's going to be determined on Saturday
But
night.
don't hold me to that.
No, every prediction
Verbally
on
beat me down on Twitter if he doesn't.
every prediction on this show is binding forever and permanent. So that's why we make them. And it's that time now. It's going to be up to Cooper and Chase Young and Draymond Jones and those guys up front. As you mentioned, Berm, that back seven to take some step forward so that Ohio State can get a win and keep in that national championship picture. So I've got to know, you guys, we're making predictions. Now it's that time. What do you think happens on Saturday night? Who are you picking? What's the kind of score and game that we're looking at?
No, listen, I mean, I think we're talking 48-42 type of game here. I think that this may come down.
That's Big Ten football,
I
baby.
think whatever team has the ball last is going to have a chance to win. I think this game comes down to which quarterback makes the fewest mistakes. And I know that Trace McSorley's body of work is bigger, but I've seen less propensity for that mistake out of Dwayne. And that's why I think Ohio State will win. But I think it comes down to the last drive of the game, and I could see it go either way.
Yeah, I think Ohio State's going to win this football game. I don't have it as close as you. I think we put up about 42 to 48 points. I see Penn State scoring about 21 to 28 points. I mean, I've seen those guys make some mistakes, and they weren't overly impressive the past couple of weeks in their wins.
Yeah, they let Illinois hang around for an awful long time, which you don't usually see contenders doing in the Big Ten. What do you got, George?
Ohio State's biggest problem has been the big plays that they have missed tackles on, that they can shore those up. And they can run the ball well. I think Dwayne's going to have a great game. I think it's going to be like 34-17, around there. I don't think it's going to be a super high scoring game. If our defense can play the way I think they can, I'm going with 34-17 and go Bucks.
I will say that I think Ohio State has a little advantage in that they played TCU, which is a team that runs a similar style of offense to what Penn State's going to bring, with a similarly athletic quarterback. So they've had an opportunity to play a team that's kind of on that level already, whereas Penn State has not. They're not probably going to be ready for the speed difference between Illinois and Kent State and Appalachian State and Ohio State.
Yeah.
So I think that's one area where the Buckeyes will have a little bit of advantage. But playing in that atmosphere is totally different, and it just all bets are off when you – if the Buckeyes go out and get down early, that's going to be a really tough spot to come back.
Even last week, Tulane's offense helped Ohio State gear up for what Trace McSorley can do. Obviously, McSorley is a special athlete, and he's going to do some things that change the game. You have to expect that, and you have to be able to bounce back from that.
But Ohio State has Tate Martell working this week potentially as Trace McSorley. Is there anyone better in the country?
In a real competitive game,
He's not really being Trace McSorley
against TCU. We saw exactly how much Ohio State needs Tate Martell.
He won't. He's not playing Trace McSorley on scout team this week because he's Ohio State's backup quarterback. So he's not playing scout team. Just so we're clear.
I thought he did play scout team to prepare for TCU.
No. But they knew he wasn't going to play against TCU.
Okay.
Well,
it's not
wait
gonna-
a second. Wow. Things are getting out of hand here.
Yeah, you got
TCU game
back it
is a
up.
good point, though, matching up with TCU with that quick offense and similar type of quarterback, I think it's a good point. They've already seen something like that. And they were, at halftime, what was the score?
14-13.
So they've been down.
Yeah.
And what happened? And that was
They responded.
Neutral field. They came back, and so I think that's a great point. That TCU game, I think, is a great.
Well, I'm here, George.
I
to
great,
make good points.
Little precursor for what's going to happen.
And I think if you looked at it, you would say that Penn State would have the edge over TCU at quarterback, but the skill players that the Horned Frogs had, the speed on the edge, holy smokes.
Last time I checked, Saquon Barkley is playing for the Giants.
Yeah, he's not walking through that
Let's not sleep on
Go
Miles
Giants.
Sanders. Let's not sleep on Miles Sanders. That kid can play. I mean, he's no Saquon Barkley. But if we and Ohio State fans are out there going, oh, the advantage is that Saquon Barkley's not there. Miles Sanders was a top 10 running back, a top 10 player at running back in the country when he came out of high school. So he's a big time guy, like big time.
What year is he?
He's a sophomore.
Sophomore.
He's a big time guy.
All right.
He's going to have a bad game, though. He's due.
He's due for a bad game. This will be the best defense he's faced, even if we've talked about questions.
I asked Ohio State players, is it different knowing you don't have to play Saquon Barkley? And the responses were varied, like, oh, he didn't really do that much against us. But in his freshman year, he had 190 yards rushing at Ohio Stadium. Last year, he had a 100-yard kickoff return and a touchdown, a 40-yard touchdown run. So, I mean,
Berm, we haven't had any media availability with players yet this
last week. Yeah, we asked him after the game last week.
Cool.
After the game, this is gonna be a slugfest. One way, it's
gonna be a great game.
Slugfest. Toga.
Slugfest, a 48-42 slugfest.
Yeah, like
what is
like a
covering
roundhouse.
every single base that you can possibly have. Like
like a roundhouse.
they're gonna
kick.
beat each other up and score 100 points. It's
It's a physical game where they're so wiped out they can't even stop each other.
The way the last two games have gone, I mean, this is basically the rubber match.
A roundhouse kick to the face. That's what this game's gonna be.